Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Skip Barber Winter Cup Series live here on Apex Racing TV. I am Tyler Newitt. That's an N, not an H, Sam. That's all right. First time working with Sam here at Apex Racing TV, but we'll get that fixed. And alongside me in the booth is Alessandro Dalladone. How you doing, Alessandro?
I'm doing great, thank you, Tyler. Looking forward for this race. We are already gridding for the first race of the evening. It won 15-lap race, and the positions that the driver will achieve in this race will then count towards the starting grid of race 2 that will be after this.
Very good. Thank you, Alessandro. And in production today we have Semuli Kumo, who is, I think, just getting my name right, and we are getting ready to roll here as we see the grid tucked behind the grandstands here at Sonoma. We're running the IRL layout as it's named in iRacing today, so the somewhat traditional IndyCar layout with the chicane instead of the S's on the backstretch and the short hairpin. Those of you familiar with the track from NASCAR will see a few differences, although NASCAR did run the carousel last season. So that is at least semi-familiar. We were just discussing before the race started here. It's a fairly old track here in iRacing, so definitely one of the sort of classic tracks and a classic American race circuit for sure. As Alessandro mentioned, we are gridding up, ready to go here for Heat 1. Simon Edwards put it on pole ahead of Christian Perez, Pablo Espez, Sebastian Schultz, and Ludwig Guidi, your top 5. We also have some classes as the lights come on, and I will give you the rundown there once we are racing. But the engines are revving, the lights are out, and we are away here at Sonoma. It's a good start for Simon Edwards. Pablo Espez in third struggled a little bit off the line. He's going to lose that position to Sebastian Schultz as they head up through turn 1 and turn 2 here. And Schultz goes defensive into the right-hander. That's going to hold Espez at bay. Some changes happening back in the pack, but nobody making any big advances or drops here. Although, as I say that, is he on track? Vince Ball has dropped 7 positions towards the back of the grid. So we may have had one little incident, but they head into, I believe that's turn 5 for the first time. Oh, I see some cars spinning in the background there. Who's that around? Oh, that's quite a few cars involved here. I am showing Neil Kemp, Mark Sierra, Daniele Fogiarini.
Yes, indeed.
And Rick Paul dropping down the order. Antonio Ribalta was in there as well. And we've got, that's unfortunate. We've got a car spun in the carousel who was just sticking out in the track and had his nose cone clipped off. That's Kevin Budgeon. So lots of action early on here at Sonoma.
Cold tires striking very early on, Tyler, for these drivers. It's always very difficult. We have another car stranded at the hairpin. It's Martin Cruz.
Yeah, that's Martin Cruz, one of our pro drivers, who, as I was just trying to get to before we got rolling here, there are 3 classes on track today. So your pro drivers are the drivers with numbers from 0 to 99, your Pro-Am drivers from 100 to 199, and your Am drivers from 200 on up. So, that was somebody getting very sideways there as they exited the IndyCar chicane. That's turn 11 here, I believe. As they head into the hairpin, taking a lot of that curbing. That's going to be very close to a corner cut there for Benny Simonson, racing for Apex Racing here in that lovely livery. He has dropped. Oh goodness, that was close there for the blue and red car. I'm not sure. That
always
was
very packed racing in the Skip Barbers, Tyler. It's very difficult to keep it clean, especially in this very tough track. While we have cold tires, it's very, very difficult. As we see here, the battle for the lead, we have a nice train of drivers. The draft obviously coming into place also in this car. Simon Edwards in the 52 leading Perez and Schultz. But in the midfield, we've seen already plenty of shenanigans, and we we need to remember that the position that this driver finish in race 1 will be the starting position for race 2. So it's going to be very important for them, even if they have damage, to keep on going.
Exactly, Alessandro. It's super crucial. I have to admit, I haven't driven the Skippies all that much since they've gotten their latest tire and damage updates. So what do you think, as we see a pack battling through here? That is Victor Gugianu, Christian Kabanka, and Daniel Tufts, I believe, all going at it there. I think that's Victor getting wide, and he's going to lose a couple of positions, though he will be on the inside for the hairpin. Will he be able to hold on to? Oh, he's late on the brakes. He's locking up. Fortunately, space was given there, because otherwise there would have been some contact for sure. So Alessandro, you have driven this car a fair bit. What do you think is going to be critical for these drivers here? You mentioned cold tires already, and we've seen it for some of these guys. Just we saw in qualifying as well, just weaving aggressively to get the heat into the tires.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very difficult to get tires working early on, and we've seen plenty of drivers making a lot of mistakes. Also, the drivers at the front who are mastering this car, they're one of the best drivers in the service driving the Skippies, struggle in these opening laps, but they are the laps where you can make a lot of difference, and the race might be lost because you have to stay within the leading pack to have a chance for the win, because as you can see here, drivers are already pushing very, very hard, sliding in any corner, but they are really, really providing us a great race, and we are set for a thrilling event, Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely. This pack is not unbunched at all here as we see a move. This is Espis, who set the quickest lap of the race so far the last time around, making the pass for third place. That's where he started. He dropped off the line a position to Schultz, but he's now made that position back. And really, this lead pack is really tight together, just as you were saying, Alessandro. There was a Skippy race that I was calling for the Ray Esports at Summit Point series here on Apex Racing TV, and I think there were 4 or 5 cars in that lead pack, and they pretty much ran nose to tail for the entirety of the race. So definitely a characteristic of these Skippies. It's really tough to get a gap and to stretch it out here, and we're seeing just that. You know, Simon Edwards put it on pole, but he has not been able to drop Christian Perez or any of the next 5 or 6 cars behind those two. As we jump back, sorry, Alessandro, this is the Pro-Am lead I just wanted to highlight here. That's Nick Vaughn Roberts, who is currently the leader in Pro-Am. As we mentioned, the car's numbered 100 to 199. So he's got a car in between him and Daniel Tufts, who is second place in Pro-Am at the moment, but not much of a gap at all. just one car's length, pretty much.
Absolutely. Race is very, very close from top to bottom. And as we were saying, we have 3 classes divided by numbers, as we see.
Ooh, there was contact there.
Some contact.
Yeah, that was for the race lead. That was Simon Edwards, who's led this race from the start, getting a bit of a hip check there from Christian Perez on his way through into the lead. Edwards has recovered into 4th place behind Sebastian Schultz. We'll get a replay here, but you can see Perez just fired it up the inside. I don't think he did anything wrong. There was certainly space for Simon Edwards there, but just a little wheel-to-wheel contact sent him tumbling down the order just a bit.
Look at that wheel turning right, but the wheel was all the way to the left for Vaughn Roberts. With that pass was extremely dangerous, but he made it work, and now he can try to push even more, as we have a great length of cars from P10 to 15, 16, with these drivers fighting for the Pro-Am lead. All the drivers within the 100 number, so from 100 to 199 will be racing for the Pro-Am class, and all the drivers with the number starting with 2, so from 200 to onwards, will be fighting for the AM class. All the guys. instead the guys from 1 to 99 will be racing in the pro category, as we say. Almost everybody in the top 10, apart from Juan Roberts, is in the pro category.
Yeah, and Nick Von Roberts is a bit separated from that lead group. We see here the AM leader. This is Simone Zamolo, who currently sits 17th overall. He's got quite a bit of a cushion over the next AM car, which I believe, if I'm reading it correctly, is Freddie Hewitt in 24th place. There's Freddie. So quite a bit of at least cars in between the AM leader and AM second place. It is the least subscribed category. We were kind of talking before the race how it sometimes goes with the Skip Barbers, where you get a lot of guys who this car is all they focus on in iRacing. So you end up with a lot of really high I rating drivers. The breakdown for the classes, I should say, is I need to double check, but I believe it's 0 to 2500. So below 2500 is your AM class. 2500 to 4000 is your Pro AM class, and 4000 up is your Pro class. So clearly a lot of really high I rating drivers competing today, given the number of Pro and Pro Am entries we have. Just goes to show the talent that some of these drivers have as we see them throwing these cars around. I mean, Alessandro, the tires on these Skippies, I feel like they have the same amount of grip as those, pedal cars you have as a kid with the plastic wheels, which just, basically slide over the road, because that seems to be what these guys are doing in these Skippies as they throw them around Sonoma.
Absolutely. It's incredible to see how this car is driving. It's very different from any open wheeler you have on the service. It's a car on its own. It's probably the reason why a lot of people stick to the Skip Barber as the only car within the iRacing service. It's full of specialists, and we have a proof also today with the incredible ratings we have within the field, and I've never seen such a high cutoff for the Pro and the Pro AM class in any competition I've been broadcasting or taking part of. So this is absolutely remarkable, an event that we are absolutely happy to have on our channel on FPS Racing TV.
For sure, absolutely, Alessandro. I couldn't agree more. As we are just about closing in on halfway through, still a little ways from halfway through this first heat. 15 laps for this heat, and then 15 laps for the feature race as well. So it'll be the same distance. At nearly a 2-minute lap, a minute 45 around here, 44 for the quick guys. It does take these Skippies a little while to get around this circuit, which is quite twisting up through the southern, the California wine country. I always see the pictures of Sonoma any time of year besides when NASCAR races there, and it's these beautiful, lush, green rolling hills. But of course, NASCAR races there kind of late in the summer and fall when it's all brown. So that's all the images you see of the track captured in video games or simulations like iRacing have just dust surrounding the track. As we see the battle here for P10, 11, and 12. Or no, I'm sorry, this is 11, 12, 13. So Nick Von Roberts has been able to gap this group just a little bit, if I'm not mistaken. This is for first and second in the Pro-Am class. That's why we're focusing on it. And that is Tufts trying to make the move on Kabanka there. That would put him directly on track, at least, behind the Pro-Am leader of Von Roberts. But not able to get the move done quite yet. And now he's opened himself up to attack from Giugianu in the 77 car. So that is a Pro entry behind him. So sandwiched between a couple of Pro drivers. Daniel Tufts doing a great job here to hold his own and try and work his way forward to catch the Pro-Am leader.
Absolutely, it's a great battle. We are watching already for a few laps now, and this is giving also the chance to our own driver, Benny Simonsen, to catch up after starting from the back of the field. He's lapping at an incredible pace, and from considering we have still plenty of laps to go, we will have a chance to end this race, maybe even in a top 10. And absolutely, this is gonna be key for the start of the race too.
Absolutely, yeah. Benny is hauling through this field. In fact, his last lap was quicker than everybody from P2 on back, it looks like. So Benny definitely putting in the effort here to work his way up through the field, as you mentioned, secure that hopefully a top 10 starting spot for race number 2. He's got plenty of time to do it, to be honest, with us just having reached about the halfway point in this race number 1. He's currently in 14th. He does have a bit of a gap. He's about 13, 14 seconds behind the overall race leader, who we see there, Christian Perez. But with the gaps on back from kind of 9th place on back, who's lost this lead group, he's definitely got the opportunity. Oh, that was close there between Simonson and Kabanka, who must have gone wide there because he's dropped quite a few positions just then. Simonson gets Giugiano as well in that, and Daniel Tufts moves into 11th position, 1 spot behind Nick Von Roberts, the class leader on track.
Great driving by Simons, and now he will make sure to get by also the last car in the line, as we see almost 3 wide racing in the...
Yeah, so Tufts went for the over-under there. I'm inclined to call that a racing incident. Obviously, I'm not a race steward, so it's not my job to apportion blame, but it did seem as if Tufts ran a little bit wide, but Kabanka also could have left a little bit more room for that pass to be completed. Unfortunately, Kabanka was the big loser there, dropping back to 14th place, behind both Giugiano and Simonson. We see now, looking back from Daniel Tufts at Benny Simonson, who wants that P11. Hasn't been able to get it done just yet, but he's going to have a look into the carousel, I have to believe. There he goes, ducking to the inside, late on the brakes, and easy done. That is P11 for Benny Simonson for Apex Racing. He moves ahead of Tufts, who does hold on to that P12 for now, which is going to be pretty critical in his battle for the win in Pro-Am. He's a bit late on the brakes there. Had a look inside of Simonson, obviously not able to make that move stick, but he secures that 12th spot over Giugiano.
Yeah, absolutely great battles in the midfield, but we also have a very tight field in the top 5, where all the drivers are still following each other, lapping more or less at the same time. It's kind of like a choo-choo train, Tyler. Everybody following the leader and waiting for the last laps to pull an attack, because it's very difficult to break away with this car.
Well, exactly, yeah, and you wonder how much these drivers from P1 all the way back to P6, I believe, in that lead group, how much, have we had contact here? That's Kabanka again, so he had already had the contact earlier with Daniel Tufts, and he has, I believe, lost his front nose cone. See what happens here. It looks like it started all the way back in the IndyCar chicane. He gets through there. Okay, so it was... who was that? That was Giugiano, I believe, who had run wide. Got a little bit of contact there, but that wouldn't have caused all of the damage we saw. So what happens next? Oh, he just loses it. Yeah, he just loses it in the hairpin. We mentioned how slippery these tires on these cars are. And unfortunately, I believe that was Beatty and Hooker who were included in that contact.
It's very easy to make mistakes, Tyler, because these drivers are racing so hard to maintain the pace of the people in front. They know that if they lose the draft, they are gonna have some issues keeping up with them, and obviously this leads to plenty of mistakes by these drivers, as we saw from Kabanka. They are very on the limit.
Yeah, the point I was going to make before we cut to that incident. As we see, this is Espes and Schultz going at it for 2nd place. No positions changed hands there. I'm not sure if that was Schultz going for a move and Espes defending, or Espes was going for the lead and ended up having to defend from Schultz. So starting to pick up here, the comment I was going to make before all this action started was, I wonder how many of these drivers running towards the front are just sort of biding their time a little bit. As you mentioned, it's really difficult to pull a gap in these Skip Barber cars, so it could very well be worth just holding your position and waiting for, if you're towards the front, waiting to make your move till later on in the race when the driver perhaps can't make a move back on you, or if you're further back in this pack, just waiting a little bit and hoping that drivers in front of you come together, have some contact, and you can pick up the pieces and move forward.
Absolutely. It's a very tactical game, driving the skip. You always have to use your head before starting to be overly aggressive. You see here drivers always showing off in the mirror, trying to pressure the guy in front, but at the same time they are under pressure from the guy behind, because they are all together, as we see here on board from Ludwig Guidi, is in front of Manuel Lucchetta, the Italian driver, top 6 closed in 2 seconds, so small mistakes can bring you from the top to the bottom of the scoop, or even lose the draft.
Absolutely, and as one of those kind of dusty tracks, kind of like Laguna Seca, it's very easy to make a mistake that costs you a significant amount of time, because if you just drop a wheel off here or there, it can really cost you. It could set you back, certainly from the front of this pack to the back of it, and if you're towards the back of this pack, you could end up losing the draft, which is, as we know, going to be critical as we head into the closing stages of this race. The leaders have just started lap 12 of 15, so 4 laps remaining for these guys. It's still Christian Perez who's led since he took the lead from Simon Edwards. Edwards still a part of this battle group. He's sitting there in 4th behind the current podium holders of Pablo Espez and Sebastian Schultz. As you mentioned, Ludwig Guidi and Manuel Lucchetta, the remaining members of this lead draft. And then Enzo Canta and Philip Hammer are the sort of secondary battle group in 7th and 8th, who are just a little ways off. You could just see them entering the shot there as we cut away. They'll be hoping to be close enough to pick up any pieces that might come about from contact within the lead group.
Absolutely. Von Robert is our Pro AM leader in 10th place, while Simone Zamolo in the 246 is our leader in the AM class in 16th. So it's nice to see how these drivers, even though they have a lower iRating, at least on paper, they are still fighting with higher class drivers. So doesn't matter if you are in AM, Pro AM or Pro, you always race for position, but then in the standings obviously you will have different points.
Oh, we've had a pass here for second. That is Schultz on Espez. Is he going to be able to hold it? I don't think he is, because Espez has the inside line for the upcoming corners. And what that's done is given Christian Perez a somewhat notable lead, not because it's, more than a couple of car lengths, but because that's the longest anybody in this race has had as far as a lead so far today. Edwards now making the move on Schultz. So Schultz, who went for the pass for second, is going to end up the big loser here if he can't hold on to this position over Simon Edwards. Edwards, our pole sitter today. Oh, they're 3 wide into turn 4. Oh man, very well done by those drivers to keep it off of each other. I think Edwards was off in the dust, and that was Ludwig Guidi who made the move inside 3 wide into turn 4, which was very bold. Did well to keep it off of Edwards. Now Lucchetta is making the move on Schultz. So Schultz went for second and ended up in 6th, which is just tells you how quickly things can change here in these Skip Barber cars around Sonoma for sure.
Now Simon Edwards will also have to do a very hard job of reeling in the 2 Spaniards. Christian Perez and Pablo Espez have now almost 2-second gap to the British driver, and it's gonna be very difficult because the draft is not as powerful 2 seconds, so these guys will have to reel them in pretty quickly, but I think they should consider settling for a 3rd place which for the championship standings will definitely be a good result. But we have still a four-way battle if the drivers at the back, Lucchetta and Scholz, will be able to catch up.
Well, absolutely, and the key here is what Simon Edwards wants is for Pablo Espez to make a move for the lead, but what would be most beneficial for Pablo Espez would be to just sit there in behind Christian Perez until the last lap here, now with 2 to go. Keep that gap as much as he can so that should they have a coming together for the race lead, they've got a bit of breathing room over Edwards and Guidi as we see the battle on for 7th place. These two had actually closed in on that lead pack just a little bit as they were battling. Oh, that's Kanta wide, and Hammer is going to take that position, I have to believe, with the inside line through turn 4 and into turn 5. He does have that position taken care of. We see the battle still continuing on for 3rd place as I'm running out of breath here. Simon Edwards holding off Ludwig Guidi, but you get the sense that Guidi really wants to make that move done. As now Kanta is going back around the outside of Hammer. No, I'm sorry, he had the inside line there. It was Hammer who made it stick around the outside to hold on to that position. That was well done. Of course, it involved Enzo Kanta running a bit sideways through the carousel to lose that pace.
It's
but of
very
course,
hard to keep up with all the action, Tyler. We only have one busy cameraman, as Samuli Kumu is doing our cameras today. It's very tough to keep up with all the action. We have someone...
that's the elapsed car, I believe.
No, that's...
I'm showing Rick Paul, who is Rick Paul, who had cut the chicane there, presumably to just let the leaders through. That's good sportsmanship from Rick. As we do see, oh, that is Guidi. He really wants that final podium position, and he has made it stick and did not leave any room for Simon Edwards on the exit there. I don't think Edwards is going to be too happy about that. And the downside for Guidi is he's left Edwards a whole lap to make that position back. Edwards already alongside as they head up into turn number 2. Is he going to make the move stick? It's going to be difficult. I don't think he does as Guidi pulls back ahead. Meanwhile, we saw Espez right on the back of Christian Perez. So far still showing in 2nd place, just a bit behind, but we're focused on this battle for the final podium position. None of these drivers are out of it for sure. All it'll take is a little slip up from Ludwig Guidi or Simon Edwards to promote Manuel Lucchetta or Sebastian Schultz back into that podium position.
Absolutely. Let's see if they will go 3 wide at the hairpin, because draft is pretty powerful in these cars. Guidi will have a tough time to keep everybody behind. But
absolutely, he takes a bit of a defensive line in there. Edwards tries to go around the outside, but that's going to open him up to attack from Manuel Lucchetta in 5th place. He's not able to pull alongside though. So at the moment, Guidi holding on to that 3rd place. Out front, it did look like Christian Perez had a bit of a gap over Pablo Espez as they head into the final few corners. I think it's going to take a bit of a dive from Espez to make that pass happen into the hairpin. I don't know if he's going to have the necessary late braking ability to pull that off. We're going to see here as nope, he tucks it in line, tries to get the run off. He's going to get a pretty good run here, but it's not going to be enough, I don't believe, to get Christian Perez. As I've just seen, Edwards has lost 4th place to Lucchetta. But Ludwig Guidi will hold on to that 3rd place ahead of Manuel Lucchetta. Simon Edwards in 5th. We look back now to Pro-Am. Vaughn Roberts is, it looks like, going to cross the line. Yes. Nick Vaughn Roberts crosses the line as your Pro-Am winner ahead of Daniel Tufts. Benny Simonson not able to get into the top 10, comes home in 11th. Here is Simone Zamolo for the AM class victory. He's had a pretty comfortable race, to be honest, with some 6 spots in hand over Freddie Hewitt, who will presumably come home 2nd in the AM class. There he is. Freddie Hewitt crosses the line in 2nd. So as the field continues filtering across, there is, we will get your results on screen for you. Just wanted to take a minute to mention the virtual racing school. You can improve your on-track performance with 50+ data packs for road and oval and dirt road and dirt oval racing, with setups, track guides, data analysis software, and one-on-one coaching. I know I've been an avid user of VRS for the last year or so, particularly for the track guides. I find them super duper helpful in finding my way around a circuit for the first time in a car, or maybe just looking for new lines, breaking points that I didn't know
Absolutely.
of before.
Also, the Apex Racing Academy is integrated with Virtual Racing School, so you can have all the kind of setups on only one website. 29 data packs, setups, track guides, weekly group coaching sessions with our pro drivers, and much more. So go check it out. You can also get a chance to win some memberships if you run 10 or more races in any official race with our Apex Academy logo on your car.
A very good point, Alessandro. Thank you. As we have now the results for heat number 1 up on your screen, Christian Perez, your winner by about a quarter of a second over Pablo Espez in second place. Ludwig Guidi comes home in third. At the end of the day, about 5 seconds back, so they really opened that gap up in the last couple of laps. Manuel Lucchetta from Italy comes home in fourth place with a last corner pass on Simon Edwards for the final spot in the top 5. Sebastian Schultz comes home 6th ahead of Philip Hammer. Enzo Canta and Will Redford 8th and 9th, and your Pro-Am winner is Nick Vaughn Roberts in 10th place overall. Benny Simonson, who started from the back, comes home in 11th for Apex Racing. Daniel Tufts brings it home 2nd in Pro-Am in 12th overall, ahead of Victor Giugiano, who we saw have some issues through the race there. Paul Beatty ahead of Simone Zamolo, who is your AM class winner in 15th overall. That's a great result for Simone. Ahead of Giuseppe Tellini and Daniele Camareri in 17th place. How'd I do there, Alessandro?
Absolutely great.
Got a nice group of Italian drivers there. John Sully in 18th ahead of Russell Clark and Alejandro Lero in 20th. That rounds out your top 20 overall. Roger Hooker in 21st ahead of Freddie Hewitt, who finished 2nd in AM class for Team Cheetah Esports Faster. James McRitchie came home 23rd ahead of Martin Cruz and Mark Sierra, rounding out your top 25. Kevin Budgeon ahead of Don Schuring for 27th. Chris Knox, another AM class driver, a few of them in there, comes home in 28th ahead of Christian Kabanka, who had a rough race. We saw him running up towards the top 10, but unfortunately tumbled down with that damage towards the back of the field there. Vince Ball comes home, rounding out your top 30 ahead of Evan Way, Neil Kemp, Antonio Ribalta, Rick Paul, Daniele Forgiarini, Michael Seal, Doug Metzel, and Stefan Nobes. Rounds out your field in 38th. What a grid. What a grid we've had here
Absolutely.
today, Alessandro.
Almost 40 drivers. While we wait for the warm-up session to finish, we have about 2 minutes before the gridding procedure. I take the chance to give our viewers a bit of context and information about the championship that you can join for free. Just head to the Skip Barber Formula 2000 forum, and there you will find all the information. As we were saying, the championship is divided between classes, Pro AM and AM class, which we covered extensively early on. The calendar will be 9 races from the 27th of December today, first round, to the 21st of December every week, and we'll have different formats. So every week we will have different races. Today we have a qualifying and 2 races. But for example, next week in Suzuka, in the 3rd of January, we will have another format, a sprint and then a main race with reverse grid. So it's a very interesting concept created by our own Benny Simonsen, which gives plenty of TV time to all these drivers that are probably already used to race together in the 2K World Cup or the official racing, but with a different approach to it.
Yeah, very good. Thank you so much, Alessandro. It's clearly a packed grid here, although I think there is still some room for drivers who may want to take part in this. And as we mentioned, the iRating cutoffs are pretty high level, so don't feel too bad if you're a bit down on your iRating, because you will be competing against some pretty equally matched drivers for class honors here. So go ahead and check that out. Also want to take a minute to mention SDK Gaming, which is what we use as our virtual live HUD, timing towers, anything basically that you see on the screen during one of our broadcasts is brought to you by way of SDK Gaming. You can stream to Twitch with the most complete overlay on iRacing. You could broadcast your league and series. SDK Gaming also syncs your commentary team's cameras. It's what allows us to work with our camera guy, Sam, today, who is doing an excellent job keeping track of all that action. I don't envy him for having to keep up with everything going on in race number 1, and I'm sure it'll be the same in race number 2. You can also adjust your team strategy on the fly with the most accurate live timing on iRacing. There's a fuel calculator, there's track maps, relative boxes, timing towers. You want it, you got it pretty much with SDK Gaming as far as a heads-up display for iRacing goes. So go ahead, check it out. Again, it's what we use. It's a really great piece of software to have in your iRacing toolbox. So here we have our grid for race number 1, which will look awfully familiar for those of you who are paying attention to the rundown for the results in race number 1. Christian Perez will lead the field to the green in race number 2 ahead of Pablo Espez, Ludwig Guidi, Manuel Luqueta, Simon Edwards, Sebastian Schultz, Philip Hammer, Enzo Canta, Will Redford, Nick Vaughn Roberts, Benny Simonson, Daniel Tufts, your top 12. Behind them, Victor Giugiano, Paul Beatty, Simone Zamolo, Giuseppe Tellini, and Daniele Camareri. Your top 17 ahead of John Sully, Russell Clark, Alejandro Lero, Roger Hooker, Freddie Hewitt, James McRitchie, Martin Cruz, the top 24. And that's all we have time for as the lights are up and we are getting ready to go here for another 15-lap race. They are off. It's a good start for Perez. It's another bit slightly poor start for Pablo Espez, this time starting from 2nd place. The previous race he started from 3rd, but he's going to hold off with Guidi for now at least. We'll see if Guidi has a look into turn number 2. Looks like he's holding back. Looks fairly clean throughout the field at the moment. Don't see anyone tumbling down the timing tower, which is always good, especially in a field this large. It's very, very easy to have a bit of a coming together back in the pack. But at the moment, everyone clean and tidy. They head into turn number 4. Oh, goodness. As soon as I say that. Oh, goodness. So a significant number of cars involved here. I'm showing at least 7 or 8 probably involved in some form or another. Roger Hooker, I believe, was the highest running of those who was dropped significantly down the order. Paul Beatty, Daniele Camareri, Alejandro Lero, Christian Cabanca. Unfortunate for Christian Cabanca, who had a rough race number 1. He's also already set back to the pits. That's tough. There was just a whole bunch of cars involved there, as we see Philip Hammer having some more trouble. He was pretty high up in race number 1 as well.
Well, another spin. It's cold tires time, as we had in the opening lap. Last time around, John Sully is our last.
Oh, no!
We have cars flaming.
And Benny Simonson's a part of that. That's
Barber.
Enzo Canta tumbling. He finished 7th in race number 1, if I'm not mistaken. So a lot of drivers who started this race up front by virtue of their race number 1 positions having a huge amount of trouble here. Enzo Canta's reset to the pits there. Not sure if these drivers have a fast repair or not, but either way, they're going to be out of contention for a win for sure.
Let's see here.
Oh, dear.
Hard to the wall. It's very difficult to control the car when you have cold tires, especially you can see also here in the background other drivers not being able to control the car. When you are side by side and the car is moving so much and you always need to push so hard to keep people behind you, it's very, very tricky. And even all these people, the best in the business in this category, are struggling. It's impressive.
Yeah, and it's tough. I know there's a debate around whether safety cars and full course yellows, as we see, I think that's McRitchie running wide there, and just nearly clipped Nobes as he came back on track. There's some debate as to whether safety cars and full course yellows have a place on road racing, on iRacing, and I've always been an advocate for them. Obviously, it slows down the race a bit, but when you see something like we saw on lap number 1, where drivers just charge with a full head of steam into a wreck because they're not going to make that time back up. They just have no way to make the time back that they would lose from contact. It's, in my opinion, it's necessary. You know, it's kind of a necessary evil. Obviously, it's something you can do in league and hosted races, but a lot of people are hesitant to do it because it doesn't always work quite right, since it's not designed for it. So, unfortunate to have such a large number of cars either out or set back early in this race number 2 here. This is the battle for, well, I don't know who's at the front of this pack. We're looking with riding on board with James McRitchie, who is in P21.
I love this livery. This livery is the best. This guy will get the best livery 100% from me any day of the week.
I think you might have to explain it to me.
Livery, Birmingham football team. At least the helmet is a Aston Villa helmet, and as an Aston Villa fan, I love it. But
Gotcha.
back to racing, because these guys are dancing these S's like crazy, and as we are focusing right now in the midfield, we also have still plenty of battles at the front, even though the group at the front is more or less the same. The gaps behind are much larger this time, as we had huge carnage in the opening laps.
Yeah, it's interesting. They've sort of dropped Simon Edwards just a little bit. I don't know if he had a poor start or what, although he closed up a bit there under braking. But Simon was the pole sitter for race number 1 and was right thereabouts in race number 1 towards the end. But yeah, as you mentioned, actually there is that kind of second group, Redford Tufts and Giugiano Tufts, by virtue of all the chaos, has actually taken the lead in the Pro-Am class. P8 overall, so he's having a great race. Unfortunately, I think our race number 1 Pro-Am winner was caught up in that.
Yeah, indeed. Juan Roberts is 25th right now.
Yes, there he is. Yeah.
He went to the pits and did a fast repair, because I see drivers coming out quite fast, the ones who made it back to pit road. So everybody will be able to continue the race, but obviously who was involved in the opening wrecks, we won't have a chance to contend for points. As we see Simone Zamolo in the 246, our AM leader, in front of Kevin Budgeon in 13th, fighting for position. He is racing very hard, as Budgeon goes a bit out of shape, trying to push really hard, but unfortunately can't find any room. As we look back to McRitchie, who is fighting with Nobs, Schuring and Kemp for 18th place.
Yeah, decent battle on here. It's interesting how far up the order some of the Pro-Am and Am drivers are. We mentioned Daniel Tufts, our Pro-Am leader, in 8th place overall, and Simone Zamolo, your race 1 Am winner and current Am leader, is in 12th overall. So he's up from, I believe he started in 15th. So although he's got a bit of a gap to the group in front of him, which is tailing Benny Simonson, who has managed to keep going, I guess, because he was involved in one of those wrecks, I think. But Simone Zamolo, there we see Daniel Tufts, but Simone Zamolo currently leading Am, although this time he only has 1 car between himself and 2nd place in Am, who is Mark Sierra, we see there. So certainly a tighter Am battle this time than we saw in race number 1.
Absolutely.
Perhaps by virtue of the lap 1 incidents, but quite a close gap here, although unfortunately it's come at the expense of Pro-Am, because Kevin Budgeon, who you see battling for 12th place with Simone Zamolo, is quite a few positions off of Daniel Tufts, who leads in Pro-Am.
Indeed, all these drivers that maybe are not as fast on pace compared to the top guys are, as we have a 3-way drag race in the front stretch. Let's see who is gonna make it at the top. On the right-hander, it's Steven Nobs, still in the lead of this group, but coming from the outside is Evan Way. It's very hard for these guys to make a pass. You see how these drivers, we have
that is Budgeon, I believe. Yeah, so Budgeon, who is fighting for P12 with Zamolo, has gone off here at turn number 4, or before it, I guess, and he's going to lose quite a few positions. He comes out in 22nd behind Philip Hammer, who is also on a bit of a recovery drive. He was involved in those lap 1 incidents after starting in, I want to say, 7th or 8th. So down a number of spots is Philip Hammer, but he's working his way back forward, currently chasing down James McRitchie, who we've seen quite a bit of already in race number 2.
Absolutely. Now we see these guys trying to make up even more positions. We have points for the top 30 drivers today, so any point will count towards the championship. Plenty of races and rounds to go, so consistency will be key. Even the drivers who had issues early on can bounce back and get some very important points, because with such a big grid, it's inevitable to have some rough rounds, or at least races during the championship, and every point in the end will matter towards the win of the class overall, or even a 10th position, for example.
Absolutely, yeah. Every position counts. That's why we haven't really seen any retire. We have seen a few retirements, but really not all that many, given the amount of cars that receive some sort of damage in the first lap. You want to talk about how important that draft is. I was just watching the lap times of that lead group the last time around, and they've opened up a little bit of a gap over Sebastian Schultz, and he's got a couple of seconds in hand over Simon Edwards. Now, the top 4 were all within 1/10 of a second, doing 1:44.9s for the most part. But Sebastian Schultz, who was just on the fringes of that tow from the lead group, did a 1:45.2. And Simon Edwards, who we know has some pretty decent pace, but was a couple of seconds off of that lead group, did a 45.6. So you're talking in the order of half a second or more the tow is giving these drivers in terms of lap time around this Sonoma raceway.
Absolutely, I think even more if you have a decent tow and not any driver in front, because I think Benny Simonsen in race 1 was lapping very low 44s at some point while he was catching up to other drivers. So I think these guys have a tough time to break any kind of draft, as we saw in race 1. The leading pair is looking very, very strong, but unfortunately, if these drivers do not battle with each other, they won't have any chance to pull away as they did early on.
Absolutely. Though they are catching a little bit of lap traffic, we kind of figured that would happen given the amount of incidents early on. I'm not sure. I think that's Antonio Ribalta ahead of them. So that's one of our pro drivers ahead of them. So don't know if he'll put up a fight. His lap times are about a second off of what this group here is doing. There's Antonio. It'll remain to be seen, but you have to believe for a little bit that tow will probably help Christian Perez in terms of keeping in front of Pablo Espes, but obviously if he gets in his way down through the S's or into the chicane, it's going to cost them.
To be fair, we haven't really seen Pablo Espes trying to get past Christian Perez at all this evening, Tyler. He's always been sitting behind him and enjoying the draft, but at the same time not even being too much of a... doesn't really have a lot of pressure from Gidi or whoever is following him. He had only a few attacks in race 1, and so far in these opening 7 laps he's been very, very quiet.
Yeah, I'd imagine that Espes probably feels he has a pretty similar pace to Perez, and as we were discussing in race number 1, there's no point in making a move early on because all it does is open you up to attack from the drivers behind. So far better to just sit, kind of in line in the tow, let the race happen, and if you have a chance towards the end, make a move, and if not, second place pays pretty good points as well.
Absolutely. It's very important for all these drivers to race with the red and not always, as we have toughs going off when you clip that grass, if you can call it grass. It's more sand in this version of Sonoma Raceway. It's very hard to get the car back on track, as Benny Simonsen is now looking to get past Tufts and also maybe other drivers in front with his very good pace. This time he will for sure aim to get a top 10 at the end of race 2.
Yep, and of course, you know, Tufts doesn't need to battle him super hard. He's got a pretty commanding lead over the Pro-Am class. It's a couple of cars, or a few cars, back to Nobes in 14th place, who is the next second place in Pro-Am. And he does have a couple of AM cars in there, as well as Zamolo and Sierra. Can't tell if they're together on track, but they are together on the timing tower. There we see Zamolo, so he's just got a little bit of a gap over Mark Sierra, about 2 seconds. Now, if Sierra can get sort of, we've been mentioning the toe, if he can get in that toe, or perhaps if he lets Stephen Nobes gets by and use his toe to get himself up to Zamolo, we might see a battle for the win in AM, but at the moment, just a bit too far to make anything happen. That is some tight racing into the hairpin. That is Simonson moving forward, or attempting to, on Tufts, but actually I think it was Tufts trying to make a move around the outside on Giugiano. Oh, he nearly got his front wing pinched off there as they made their way through turn number 1. Simonson now goes up the inside in turn number 2. I don't think there was contact there, but they both got a little bit sideways, and Simonson settles back in to 11th place.
You can clearly see how Benny Simonson is having a very rough time to get past these drivers, even though he has he sent it onto the inside, and thankfully the French driver gives him Daniel Tufts, gives him plenty of space. That was a very, very risky move from Simonsen, from the Danish driver, and now has to cover the outside lane, but unfortunately is not the fastest way around that corner. Simonsen has much more pace than these drivers, but still hasn't been able to clear one guy in this pack.
No, and you know, it just shows you the talent of the drivers in this field. We mentioned that it's a pretty high cutoff for the Pro-Am class at 4,000 iRating. So there's no guarantee just because he's in a lower class that Daniel Tufts is going to be a slouch and roll over to Benny Simonson here, and we've certainly seen that. As Simonson finally gets the move done into the chicane, but it was a well-fought battle for Daniel Tufts, who is still leading in Pro-Am ahead of Stefan Nobes in now 13th overall, as he's worked his way by Mark Sierra.
We are 6 laps left. Tufts hit the wall there, I think. Exiting the last corner. Let's see if his car is okay, but seemed to me a bit wide. The skips are quite resistant, to be fair. If you clip the front wing, it's very, very sensitive. Also, many drivers had to come back to pit road for changing the front wing, or even not being able to go back to pit road at the start. So keeping the car clean and not having contact with the wall or mostly other drivers is very, very good for scoring some consistent points for the championship. As we see a battle for 14th place between Evan May, Mark Sierra and Doug Metzel, who just tries to go around the outside, the Illinois driver.
Yeah, Mark Sierra losing a couple of places here in short order now behind both Nobes and Way, and looks like he might lose another here to Metzel. These are not positions in class, obviously. Sierra in the AM class, these are all Pro-Am drivers, but what they're doing is putting cars in between Sierra and Zamolo, who are top 2 in AM class. So Sierra really needs these guys to go up there and hassle Zamolo if he wants to have a chance here, with coming up on 5 laps remaining in this race.
The field is a bit more spread out compared to the first race, obviously because of the different approach driver took in race 2 compared to race 1. They seemed more aggressive than the previous race, but still we have some very good fights. For in the lead group, everybody is still following Christian Perez and Pablo Espes, while here we have another fight between Simone Zamolo and Steven Knox for P12.
And I just want to highlight Martin Cruz. He's not technically our biggest mover of the race because we had some drivers who started towards the back and picked up quite a number of places in the lap 1 incidents. And certainly Martin Cruz did as well, but he is currently running in 8th place, up 16 spots overall from where he started, which is pretty impressive to be able to run that high and hold that position. I thought he wasn't too far off the back of Will Redford. I might have read that mistakenly, but yeah, it looks like he's a bit of a ways off. But well done by Martin Cruz to work his way up through the field. Several other drivers who picked up spots in the chaos on lap 1. We've mentioned Stefan Nobes, who's just gone by, Simone Zamolo, Evan Way, Doug Metzel, all those guys who we were watching kind of in that group there have worked their way quite a ways up through the field.
Yeah, great battles between Nobes and Zamolo. Nobes now made the pass happen, and he will now try to put a little gap between him and the Italian driver. It's definitely... Ooh, Zamolo
dear!
Too much speed entering the chicane. I don't know how he made it stick. That was a very optimistic move, but he made it work thanks to Nobes that also gave him plenty of space.
Well, and I was just about to say what Zamolo needs to do is sit in, get in line behind Nobes and use that toe to pull away from the drivers behind them, but instead he went for a somewhat wild move into the chicane, and what it's done is brought the next 3 cars right up to his rear bumper, including second place in AM, Mark Sierra. As we see, I'm not sure if this move was on purpose or not, to be honest. I think he was just showing his nose and wasn't expecting Nobes to brake as late as he did, because he really sailed it in there.
Absolutely, I thought he was going straight through the grass.
He did well to hang on to it, and props to Nobes for seeing him coming, I assume, and giving him the space to finish his slide without making contact. But Nobes got the last laugh and moved forward through the hairpin, so he is now up into 12th and second on track, as well as in class to Daniel Tufts in Pro-Am.
Yeah, now Way and Metzel will be looking to go by Zamolo too, and this will put him very, very close to Sierra, who is 16, not too far away. Now under pressure.
That's what I was saying, was it would have been wise of Zamolo to just sit in behind Nobes, because it would have helped pull him away from Mark Sierra, who's hanging on to the back of those 2 Pro-Am cars, but instead he finds himself right there with them. There's Mark Sierra. He's a little bit of a ways off of the 2 Oh no! Who is that? That's Neil Kemp, who I think has had some contact with John Sully. I think Sully... Kemp may be waiting for Sully there. His damage didn't look terminal. Well, he's reset to the pits. Sully doesn't have a rear wing anymore.
He will definitely need to go to pit road and get a fast repair, as his day is pretty much over. Meantime, in the top half of the standings, Perez Espes still are leading the way, and Ludwig Guidi, Lucchetta are still somewhat hanging on, but at the same time, behind Schultz lost completely the draft, and now we are left with only 4 drivers leading our second race of the evening. And,
yeah, there was a... Sorry, Alessandro, there was a point a few laps ago where I looked and Lucchetta was in danger of losing the toe, so he's done well to get back onto the tail of this group and in contention for a podium position. He was some second and a bit back of Ludwig Guidi, but he's closed back in, perhaps just as this field has worked its way through lap traffic, which there has been a fair bit of. That is also a pretty sharp-looking Skip Barber car, but he is looking, I don't think to make a move yet on Ludwig Guidi, as we still have coming up on 2 laps to go here. You know, it could be as well that you just sit here and wait and see if a podium falls into your lap, because you probably don't have the pace of the top 3, or if you do, it's pretty much even and going to be very difficult to make a pass happen.
Yeah, you can see from our timing tower on the left of your screen, all the times from these drivers are pretty much the same. So it's very difficult for these top guys to find a way to get past. And if you make a mistake, it's gonna cost you a lot. So I think these guys are mostly trying to hang in the draft, make sure they don't make a single little mistake, and then in the last lap probably they will try to give everything they got. But at the same time they have to deal now with slower traffic. Vince Ball right now is in 28th position, is about to go one lap down, but I think he will gently move to the right side of the track as he's right now doing, and let everybody by.
Yeah, good sportsmanship there by Ball. I love these onboard shots, Sam, because you can really see the way these drivers are throwing these Skip Barber cars at the curbs and into the corners to try and make them stick. You know, we really saw Lucchetta attacking the curbs. We see it again there. And I mean, really everybody is. But you have to keep up with these top drivers. I mean, they are just absolutely throwing these cars around, but they know how to make it stick. They've obviously put the time into these Skip Barber cars, as we see a big wiggle there from Ludwig Guidi. But these drivers really just wringing the neck of these Skip Barber cars and absolutely giving it everything they have. And all it's gotten them is just a line astern with one lap to go here. We'll have to see if any of these drivers are able to make a move even, because at the moment it's just a little bit spread out. Christian Perez got a great run out of the hairpin and opened up a bit of a gap on Pablo Espez, which gives him some breathing room into one of the bigger passing zones on the track in turn 2 here. It's not the best place to make a pass happen, but certainly it's one of them. And anytime you can eliminate a passing opportunity for the car behind you, you've done a good job. So they head now towards turn 4. The white flag is out, as we mentioned. Nothing Espez can do here, nor can Guidi or Lucchetta. Everyone just a little bit too spread out, and all, you know, similarly talented, so not going to make a late braking maneuver because it's just not going to stick. No lap traffic ahead of Christian Perez, so it's going to be a clean run into turn number 7, which is probably going to be one of the last opportunities for Pablo Espez. Obviously, the chicane is still an option, as is the hairpin, but he's too far back to make anything happen, and that draft is the best he's going to get. In fact, he's under pressure now from Ludwig Guidi. It looks like the position that's most at risk here is Espez' second place. Guidi working his way down through the S's. They'll head into the straight section before the IndyCar chicane. He runs just a bit wide and drops a wheel halfway into the grass. He looks to the inside. Oh, he just got alongside Espez, but it's not enough to make the move happen. And Lucchetta now has a run on third place. It's all happening here, but Christian Perez is thinking this is great because he is walking away with this race victory. As long as he gets a good run through the hairpin, they're side by side for second. Espez forces Guidi just a little bit wide. Lucchetta wants that final podium position, but I don't think he's going to quite have the run. It is going to be no. Guidi in third place behind Espez and Perez. What a battle for the finish there. That was excellent.
Absolutely great racing, clean racing. While we watch here Daniel Tafts, our Pro AM winner for race 2, the main race.
And a great job by Tufts to hang on against a charging Stefan Nobes, who was really pushing to close the gap there at the end. Here is Zamolo fighting for that AM class win. He's really been sailing it into the hairpin today, but it works out, and he is going to come home in 14th place and as your AM winner ahead of Mark Sierra, who came across the line in 16th position.
Great race by these guys. We had two lovely races, two lovely hits here at Sonoma. The Skippies always provide great fun, packed racing, and when you have 38 of the best drivers on the service with this car, while we see some celebration, I guess, and some cars attempting to fly, it's always so nice to see these drivers go side by side through one of the toughest tracks on the service, because it's so difficult to go through these corners, up and down, blind corners, hairpins. It's one of the most complete tracks we have within our service.
For sure, it's a great track, and obviously it's a bit unfortunate we had the carnage we saw on lap 1 of race number 2, but it's a great track, but it's also a very tight track, and sometimes wrecks like that are just inevitable when you have a very narrow track and cars coming all grouped together. It's certainly not impossible to have incidents like the ones we saw in lap number 1, but pretty much a flawless day from Christian Perez. He didn't qualify on pole for race number 1 as we have our results now, but he won race number 1 and led most of it, and led start to finish in race number 2. Christian Perez is your winner ahead of Pablo Espes, who finishes second for the second time today, and Ludwig Guidi rounds out your podium again for the second time today. Manuel Luqueta is your 4th place finish, representing Italy in the top 5. Sebastian Schultz comes home in 5th. Simon Edwards, who started race number 1 on pole, but unfortunately had a bit of a difficult run from there, comes home in 6th place in race number 2. Will Redford brings it home 7th. Martin Cruz in 8th. Benny Simonson, who we saw working his way forward, comes home in 9th. And Victor Giugianu comes home in rounding out your top 10. All pro drivers in the top 10 for race number 2. Daniel Tufts, your winner in Pro-Am for race number 2, comes home 11th overall, ahead of Stefan Nobes, who really closed the gap there right at the end. Evan Way comes home in 13th, also Pro-Am driver. That's your Pro-Am podium right there. Simone Zamolo is your Am winner, comes home in 14th, ahead of Doug Metzall. Mark Sierra, your 2nd place driver in Am, comes home 16th overall. Kevin Budgeon. James McRitchie, a couple of Pro-Am drivers in 17th and 18th. Don Schuring rounds out your Am podium in 19th place overall. Michael Seal comes home in 20th, also an Am driver. Philip Hammer, Pro driver, 21st. Roger Hooker, Nick Vaughn Roberts, Russell Clark, all Pro-Am drivers, 22nd through 24th. Enzo Kenta, who we saw flipping in that race, comes home in 25th, ahead of John Sully. Giuseppe Tellini comes home in 27th, ahead of Vince Ball. Antonio Ribalta and Daniele Camareri, who is rounding out your top 30, also a Pro-Am driver. Another Daniele Forgiarini, comes home in 31st, ahead of Neil Kemp. Paul Beatty is in 33rd, ahead of Alejandro Lero. Freddie Hewitt, who had a great run in race number 1 to 2nd place in Am, unfortunately did not have as good a run in race number 2 and comes home in 35th, ahead of Chris Knox, Christian Kabanka, and Rick Paul, all of whom were eliminated in the lap 1 carnage.
Let's see if we can get some of these drivers in our commentary booth to have a quick chat about the race and the championship.
Yeah, I don't see anyone waiting just yet, but
we'll try to keep it going a little while, see if someone is going to pay a visit.
Yeah, I just wanted to, while we have the time, bring up once again the Virtual Racing School. A super useful resource here on iRacing to improve your on-track performance, with 50+ data packs for every variety of racing on iRacing, Road, Oval, and all the dirt stuff as well. You can get setups, track guides, as well as really useful data analysis software. If you're into using telemetry but you want a tool that's a bit easier, Virtual Racing School is all that. Data analysis software, as I just mentioned, one-on-one coaching as well. All tools at your disposal if you subscribe to the Virtual Racing School. And as Alessandro so eloquently mentioned before, Virtual Racing School is integrated with the Apex Racing Academy, which has 29 data packs, setups, track guides, weekly group coaching sessions, and more. Plus, this season, Apex Racing Academy is available as a sponsor in the iRacing Paint booth. And if you put Apex Racing Academy on your car for, I believe it's 10 official races this season, you can win some great prizes. So lots on offer from our friends at Apex Racing Academy and the Virtual Racing School. Go ahead and check it out if you haven't. They're both super handy resources that will improve your driving here on iRacing.
Well, while we wait just a few minutes still, then if nobody's coming by to say hi, we'll probably wrap up our broadcast today. We can give you quickly the schedule of this championship. As I was saying earlier, different formats for this championship every week. next week we will be heading to Suzuka GP for round 2. Then we will have Watkins Glen Butte, Imola, Zolder, Charlotte, Roval, Interlagos, Bathurst, and to round up the season, one of the best tracks in the service, Mosport, on the 21st of February. I think this schedule follows the official iRacing one, so the drivers will be having plenty of practice during the week for this event, and we'll be for sure thrilled to have them on board on our channels again. I think, Tyler, we can call it a day. Nobody is unfortunately coming by to say hi, so I think we can salute our viewers and
yeah. Thanks to everybody who's tuned in here today. Unfortunate that the drivers are a bit camera shy, I guess. Nobody wants to come hang out with us in the interview room, but that's fine. Congratulations on a couple of wins to Christian Perez, some really, really excellent racing, and a super stacked field here in the Skip Barber Winter Cup Series. It has been a lot of fun here at Sonoma. So for Apex Racing TV, I have been Tyler Newitt. You have also heard Alessandro Dalladonna on the commentary, and the excellent Sam Kumo running the cameras for us today. That'll wrap it up for us, but we hope to see you next time here on Apex Racing TV.